Okay, we're live. Hi, everybody. If you're watching this, welcome to the Levitum Knot. We're up to edition number 14 now, and I'm Arvi. And today I'll be talking to you guys about skydiving. And I'm mostly going to be recounting a skydiving. It's my first skydiving experience. It was back, I think, in mid-summer. I think it was summer of 2000. So that's a long 14 years back. And back then, I lived in San Francisco, and one of my buddies from grad school was getting married, and his brother decided to, as a wedding gift for his for Matt and his wife, decided to buy them a skydiving jump, of someplace up north of Napa and Sonoma. So, um, I think there were at least a few members of his family that were fairly shocked that the wedding gift was going to be skydiving, to go see the newly married couple going and jumping off a plane. But the rest of us were all gung ho about it. So we got a group of us together and we drove up to up past Napa, Sonoma, up across the bay, and found this lovely spot where there were a bunch of skydiving instructors who prepped us with all the theory that is involved. And I think the most fun part about it was getting into those lovely jumpsuits that they provide, which is like if you like comics, it's it's a dream come true to be one of the superhero gears that uh, but I probably look like just a guy in tights, but Matt and the others look pretty good. Um, so the gist of the theory that they take you through is mostly fairly simple, right? It's with respect to the posture, with respect to coordination. The first jumps that you do, early jumps, are all done in tandem. And what skydiving in tandem means is essentially you're linked via harness to the instructor who jumps along with you, and he's behind you. And he'll essentially guide you through the steps of maneuvering yourself through the point where you pull the chute, and then going through from there until you land on the ground. So I think we received sort of 3, 4 sets of instructions broadly. One was just various precautions that we had to take. Second was just signals for coordinating with the instructor with respect to pulling the chute, and then finally, I think the most important part, which is how to land on your feet and how they would coordinate that. And they made you sign a single-page declaration with and it wasn't fine print. Essentially, it said that, look, I know that I might die, and I'm okay with it. And obviously, I'm here to live to tell the tale. But this sport is filled with risks. I mean, every year you hear of people who had a bad fall. So it's there's this tale of it was not, if the Wright brothers was an optimist and he invented the airplane, there's a pessimist out there who invented the parachute. There's a lot of research that's gone into improving the quality of the chutes and reducing the amount of risk involved, but there's still a lot of risk. And if you know me, I'm the sort of guy who will likely try just about anything once, and I'm curious enough. Now, I'm not terribly scared of heights, but if you put me up on the 10th floor of a building and ask me to stand out there and peer over the top, I'd be more likely to first feel a little comfortable holding the railing and looking over, and not be the first person to try to be willing to climb up and stand there and peer over it. So not terribly afraid of heights, but it's a force of nature which would still intimidate you in certain ways. So once we're all gone through a prep, right? They put us onto this little plane that could maybe carry about 8 people, 10 people max, and they took us about 8 to 10,000 feet up in the air, and that's about 3,000 odd meters, right? 3,000 odd meters, 10,000 feet, and that's typically the point from where they drop you off, between 8 to 10,000 feet, and roughly around 1,000 meters, around 3,000 feet, is where you pull the chute. So there's typically a couple of phases that you go through, right? The point where you jump off, where the plane is already sort of moving at a certain speed, and since the plane's moving at a certain speed when you jump off, you've sort of got the linear momentum as well, moving along. So you sort of feel like you're moving along this way, and then you start to drop. Now, it's dropping itself is an interesting phenomenon, right? Because you're dropping way up there, 10,000 feet. And it's not like bungee jumping or diving off a swimming pool dive board or anything of that sort. You're 10,000 feet up in the sky and you're diving, right? But on the other hand, it's a little different in that there's a lot of wind resistance that holds you back. And you don't exactly feel like you're falling. It's hard for me to describe it. If you haven't jumped, it's a little hard to describe, but you don't have that feeling of falling. So because of the wind resistance, you sort of feel like there's a strong gust of wind the other way. And as you start to drop, right, your speed increases and it gets up to like 180, 190, 200 kilometers per hour. And at that point, it starts to flatten out because that's when you reach your terminal velocity, right, where essentially your acceleration stops because the reverse air pressure matches this, and acceleration stops, and you continue to move at your terminal velocity at about 200 kilometers per hour. And it's an amazing experience. But once we were up in the plane, we were taking turns one by one, jumping off tandem with the instructors, and the way this works is you're up there in the plane, and they open this huge hatch, and it's open to the sky and the clouds, and you just have to walk up there and then jump out head first, right? And after you jump out head first, you're taught to essentially take a position like a little boat-shaped position with your tummy down and head up and hands fully stretched out. You've seen this, in our Bond movies and on TV, but it's also a position that your body naturally takes. It's a simple position that's easy to hold, and it's also easy for the instructor who's with you to help maneuver things. Now, for more experienced skydivers, they would essentially dive head first because it helps them reach terminal velocity even faster, right? Because you move a lot quicker heading down just straight head first. So, so we were super excited, right? I mean, guys jumping off one after the other. When it was sort of my turn to hop out, it was still a little weird because you're about to jump off a plane and your first instinct is still to sort of hold on to the edge and then try to look over and see where you're going to jump. But the instructors wouldn't allow it. So we just had to sort of jump out. And I just remember a huge blood rush and this feeling of sort of, it wasn't a feeling of falling. You just feel like you're flying. And it's like you're just in the middle of the air. And when you're 10,000 feet up, right, you're so high up that even though you're falling so fast, the Earth is so far away that it feels like it's not moving a lot initially, right? But you could see the outline of the mountains, rivers, the clouds, because you're way up there, and it just looks unbelievable. So this lasts for just a little bit, right? There's an initial part when you go off the plane, and you can feel like you're moving in a slightly different direction, and then you can feel that you're sort of falling or floating. And after it's gone on for a little while, and obviously this happens just really, really quickly when you're up in the air, right? The instructor will guide you, help you to just pull the chute. And then from there, he goes through a series of maneuvers to help you find the DZ, the drop zone, which is sort of the target spot where you hope to land and not end up in someone's chimney or something else. But most of the maneuvers that he makes are by holding the chute and pulling it left or right to sort of twist and maneuver it until he can get the angles down towards the drop zone. Now, the landing, right? They try to get you to land sort of at an angle with your feet without applying too much of the pressure. For first-time jumpers, the instructor usually tries to carry some of that weight so it's not too hard for you. But they try to make sure that you don't sort of fall face first, because that's still going to be hard no matter what. And you guys play sports, you're familiar. You're often better off landing on your butt than any other part of the body because it still absorbs a lot more than landing on your wrist, where there's a higher risk of injury of some sort. So had a smooth landing. The last part where you sort of slow down is really calm, is really peaceful as you're just sort of steering yourself. And we did this in a clear, beautiful day, right? And I think the only other question that people had, I think, while jumping out of the plane was, you see roadkill on the streets. Is there a risk that you're going to hit a bird when you're skydiving and you're coming off? And fortunately, we didn't see any of that happen. Apparently, the chances are very low. But we had a great dive, and if this is something which I would love to do again at some point. I think it's a great experience that I'd recommend to any of you who are considering it. A few things that I would suggest is ensuring you find a safe place, no matter what the risks are high. So look for someone who's been through at least 500, 600 jumps. Typically, instructors that to be certified have to go through at least 500 jumps, have gone through the certification. Um, Look for a place where they've been around a little while and they've got a decent safety record and appear to be changing the equipment often enough. Equipment in the sport is expensive, and you know, one of my former colleagues has been jumping for a while now. I think he's gone through 40, 50. He's able to jump on his own. It's a great hobby for those who are passionate about it. But if nothing else, I think it's an interesting, eye-opening experience because the world has so much to just show us, and I think this is one thing which I'm just glad that I went out and did once. Um, yeah, so that's my diving experience. Just thought I'd share it with you guys. I don't know whether any of you have been diving or have plans to. Raj?
Yeah, sometime.
So there are a couple of spots here, I think apparently near Bangalore and Hyderabad as well, where diving is possible.
Is it like
Um,
skydiving or is it one of those other paragliding kind of? I know all of those other things are there, but I haven't heard of skydiving.
yeah, apparently skydiving is possible as well now. I mean, obviously, it's at a certain level, the technology and the things have been available for a while because wherever there's military, right, at a certain
Yeah.
level,
Yeah.
the equipment is possible, but just getting good trainers is often the hard part.
Right.
And in fact, the people, especially in the military, who are trained, they get trained to deal with all sorts of complicated situations, right?
Mm.
Because they have to dive out and land on a battleship, or they have to dive out in the night, right? Where in the night where you can't even see where you are easily. It's really hard. Um, Historically, like some of the skydiving things started off where the military used to use them to help people land on balloons or blimps, and you know, and then it started to be used in the war zone for deploying troops or reconnaissance. Um, but I'm sure just the Indian Air Force would have a large group of people who are fairly seasoned divers locally here. And I think if the safety precautions are met, I'm sure it would be quite interesting.
Yeah, definitely sometime sooner than later, hopefully.
Hey, what you described, Arvi, sound really fun, but of course, there's always doing it in India. One requires an extra level of caution.
Yeah, it's true. So
Yeah, that's the only thing. I think earlier this year there was a tragedy and they stopped the thing in Bangalore
Oh,
as bungee jumping.
Skydiving, bungee jumping, right?
No, skydiving. Bungee jumping was a couple of years ago. They stopped it then and there. So this was skydiving and somebody lost their life.
In India, is
Like
it?
yeah, in Bangalore.
Oh, okay.
mm,
I think it was there as Jakur flying drones. That thing is there, flying aerodromes. So the
mm,
flying club had started it, and the problem with that in India is the equipment and like you said, like, that's the thing. I already mentioned like, it's one of the
yeah,
most important things, especially in India. I mean, especially the lack of safety standards, right, for everything. So that's the problem here. But abroad, yeah, anywhere I think if I get a chance, definitely I would love to do it.
yeah, and
Arvi, this is probably what you were referring to, but I just read up that the Indian paratrooper regiment is based out of Bangalore.
perfect. So,
Yeah, but I'm sure the ones that are running the show are all private, right? So it's not.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
because
one.
yeah,
you're
yeah,
referring to the military aspect.
yeah. So definitely, I mean, the Air Force paratroopers. I mean, the level of expertise they have and the sort of situations that they have to handle is so much harder, right? I mean, it could be a cloudy day, it could be in the night, it could be in the ocean. It's really hard. It's completely difficult. Um,
Yeah, I also think over here we are also to blame sometimes because we don't entirely heed safety warnings and things like that. We are we don't like wearing seat belts and helmets and things like that, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
it's sort of reflective of we've got to tighten up individually as well. Um,
yeah,
so some of the things that happen are because people are very cavalier in some sense about the way they go about things. So
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, that is my story. And that is thing on diving. Didn't have anything else. Hope you guys enjoyed that.
Nice story, Arvi.
Yep, it was enjoyable.
Thanks, guys. I'll wrap this.
all right.
Do we have a video of this anywhere?